So we helped you guys find your favorite motor oil color. Now we're going to try to do the same thing with some Junebug. So let's go. Welcome back to the channel, guys. So today we found every Junebug color that we could find. We've got one from Do It Molds. We've got Golden Grub. We have MF. There are two of them from Baitplastics. We've got Dead On's version, Lureworks, and then I did want to touch on one thing. So I know a lot of people make Junebug using black grape. We are not comparing black grape colors in this video. We are just comparing just straight Junebug colors. So we're gonna kind of reverse the order. So last time we started with biggest bottles and went down to the smallest. Today we're gonna start with the smallest, work our ways up. That's just a way to randomize the order of these colors. So we've got a lot of plastic to cook. We got our first cup in the microwave. Let's get to this first one. All right, so we started with the Golden Grub. My audio was messed up on the first little clip, but this is 15 drops for half a cup of plastic. So as I mentioned in the last video, I'm going to do a translucent version, a thicker version, and then one with flake. For the translucent version, what I'm doing is I just want to be able to see the tip of the stir in the bottom of the cup. For the thicker version, I'm going to get it to where I can only see about 1/8 of an inch into the cup. And then obviously the last version is just going to be with flake added. We are going to swap up molds again today. Let me know what you guys think about that. We're going to get this plastic back up to working temp and then get this first round injected. All right, we are ready to inject this first round. And yes, we did the same sprue trick with this mold as we did in the last video. So this will be a single cavity mold. Now let's let this cool off and check it out. So here is the first round. So the sprue trick I was talking about, as you guys saw in the last video, you just take an old sprue, put it in the mold, it'll block off the bottom. Since this mold has cavities going both direction, I just took one of my old baits, threw it in this side, and we create that single cavity version of this. So the reason I chose this mold is because Michael over at Bait Chuckin' suggested, since him and Adam at SDG use the Epic, the Rocket Grub, I think is what it's called. They were talking, or he mentioned using that mold to do all these color comparisons so that everything will be even across the board. I don't have the Epic version, I just have this one. So for the time being, this is the closest that I could do. Let me know if you guys want to see all future color demos done in this type of mold, just to kind of keep everything even across all three channels. Let me know what you guys want. Do you want that? Do you want to just mix everything up? Whatever you guys want is what we're going to do. But there is round one for the Golden Grub. We're going to get all this the leftover melted back up. We'll add a little bit more pigment for our more opaque version, and then we'll keep on moving. We got all the leftover melted down. We're going to add some more and see what this thicker version looks like. So I went with 10 more drops for starters. It's still pretty translucent, so let's go ahead and double and go up to 30. When I say double, I mean the first round was 15 drops for half a cup, so we're up to 30 drops for half a cup right now. That's looking pretty good right there. I think we're going to stop at 30, and then we're going to make round number 2. Time to check out this thicker version. And there you have that one's definitely a lot more Junebuggy than the first one. Pretty cool. Now let's get the leftover melted up and add our flake. We are ready for the flake. We're going to add just a little bit of all three sizes of green. I'm going to start with just a 1/16 teaspoon for each one since we don't have a whole lot of plastic. And then we'll fine tune as needed. So there's a 1/16 of each one. Get this stirred in and see if that's a good amount. I think that is just fine. We'll get all this stirred up, we'll get it to the correct temp, and we'll inject the third and final run. Let's take a look at the final version with flake. So there you have the golden grub version in traditional Junebug with that green flake. Now I'll grab the first two runs and we'll look at all three of these side by side. And there you have all three rounds of this. This is a great example of how much just flake changes the color of a bait. So this one in the middle and this one, the exact same amount of pigment. The only difference is that green flake. And you can see how much that changes the color of the overall bait. Because these two, when I was mixing these up, as far as a Junebug color, these were not very Junebuggy looking to me. But then you add that green flake, and that is more of your traditional Junebug. So a lot of these colors, as you're mixing them up, you may not get the exact result you're wanting until you add your flake. But really, really cool little comparison of that. So there is your golden grub version of Junebug. Time to move on to Do It Molds Junebug. Now I'm only going to add about 3 drops of color because this one is pretty thick. And that's all we need. We're ready to inject. Let's look at the translucent version for Do It Molds. And again, this was only 3 drops of pigment for half a cup. So the equivalent of 6 drops per cup, and it's still a little thicker than the other one. So just keep that in mind. But there is the translucent version for Do It Molds. Now let's remelt and add our pigment. So here is the comparison of the translucent version and the thicker version. I like the Junebugs that are more like this, where the body almost looks black, and then you can see the purple coming out in the thinner spots. But I like this one. So we're going to get our leftovers melted, add our flake, and then move on to the last round. Here you have all 3 of these. Really cool color. This one, the difference in no flake and flake isn't quite as drastic as the one before. I think that has to do with just this already being a darker color. But either way, it's still a really nice one. So there you have Do It Molds Junebug. And now let's move on to MF. Alright, so we are at 20 drops of the MF color for our translucent version. Now, just in the cup, this honestly looks like a fantastic Morning Dawn version. So, I don't know. Let's get it injected and see what it looks like in a bait. Let's see what this looks like. In the cup, it reminds me a lot of the Violet Grape Changeable. Yeah, even in this bait, let me get it out of here for you. So this color reminds me a lot of the Violet Grape Changeable that they have. Maybe I'll have to do another video comparing those two side by side because that is very, very similar. Alright, now let's add some pigment and check out the thicker version. So here is the more opaque version. When you add more pigment to this one, the purple, like the Junebug, really shows up more and looks a little less like the Violet Grape. in the translucent version, but super cool. Now to add some flake, and look at all three. Here are your three different versions of MF. It's really cool. This one, in the thicker portion after adding the flake, it almost brings out kind of like a plum color. This is more what you would consider the reddish side of Junebug. Really cool. And I wanted to show you guys, so we've only compared three different colors so far, and look at how much different these are. Now, I'm not going to say that one is better than the other. It's just they're all their own different version of it. And that's why I like doing these videos, to show you guys. All of these are labeled Junebug, but you can see how much different the three of these are. So let's see how much the last four colors change in comparison to these. And let's keep moving. Next up, we've got Dead On Plastics Junebug. I'll be really curious to see this one. It's definitely more on the blue side of Junebug. But we got our transparent version ready to go. Let's inject it and check it out. Here's our first look at Dead On Plastics Junebug, or Bloonbug, whatever you want to call it. It is very blue. So the last one on the MF, you saw more of the red side. Now it looks like this one is going to be more of the blue side, because again, you mix blue and red to make purple. So pretty cool. I'm interested to see if the thicker version really draws out more of that purpley Junebug color. But either way, here's your translucent version. Now let's get to moving. So you can see here in the thicker version that it definitely pulls more of that purple out. It is still on the blue side of the spectrum as far as Junebug colors go, but still pretty cool nonetheless. Now let's add our flake and check out all three. Here's all three versions of Dead On's Junebug. So you can see this is why we use these molds with a thicker part and a thinner part. Because if you were to just make, say, a stick bait and you just have a thicker part, all you see is that purpley Junebug. You don't really get to see the blue hues coming out in it. But really cool color. I like this one a lot. So there is Dead On's. Now let's get on to Baitplastics. So the first one of Baitplastics that we're going to check out is their Junebug EX. Now this is in their premium line. When you look on their website, they're going to have their standard and then their premium colors. This one is under the premium, and then the next one will be the standard version. Here we go with our first run of the premium Junebug from Baitplastics, and we ended up with 7 drops for our translucent version. Here's our side-by-side of the translucent version and the thicker version. So as you can see, this one, just like Dead On Plastics, is more on the blue side of the spectrum, but still really cool. Now it's time to flake it up and check it out. A little side note, so you can see this bubble right here. So on 2 baits in a row, I've gotten that bubble in almost the exact same spot. So you can see there's a vent right there next to it. What's probably happened is you probably have a tiny little piece of plastic or dust or something in there. Just clean that vent out. If I shoot and I get a bubble like that, on the first time I see it, I typically don't really care too much about it. But then if I see it duplicating that almost exact result multiple times, then I'll go to my vents, clean those out, and it should eliminate your issue. Just wanted to touch on that since it did happen during this video. Here is your Baitplastics premium comparison. That is this jug right here. Really, really nice color. Again, it's more on the blue side of things, similar to the Dead On Plastics, but still a really, really nice Junebug color in the end. Really like this one. Now, I'll be interested to see how much this one changes to their standard one, because you can see in the bottle, you can see in the bottle how much different it is. I have a feeling this one's going to be more along the lines of that Golden Grub version, but that's why we're doing this. So let's cook up our next cup and check this one out. Here is our translucent version of the standard Junebug from Baitplastics. I'll grab this is the premium on the left, so you can see, even though they're both Junebug colors from the same company, they are very, very different. So keep that in mind and get whichever one you like best. Now we're going to thicken up our color and check out the more opaque version. Here's the more opaque version of the standard Junebug from Baitplastics. It's a nice, brighter purple. It's very similar to the Golden Grub version. So I'll be curious to see if adding flake to this one really has that drastic color change like it did on that. Speaking of flake, let's throw it in there and see what it looks like. There are all three versions of the standard Baitplastics Junebug. So again, you can see we did have a pretty drastic color match on those last two from just adding the flake, which is pretty cool. Which I do know some people who will actually add their flake to their plastic before their colorant because of how much the flake can alter the color. So you don't want to dial in your color with your pigment, add your flake, and it throw everything off. But you do it whatever you want to do and whatever works best. We're just here to show you guys the difference in these colors. Now we just have one last color to go over, so let's get to it. Here's our translucent version of Lureworks. Really nice color. I like the shade of purple that this one is putting off. So let's thicken it up and see what we got. Here are both versions of Lureworks. It's just a really, really nice kind of it's not really red or blue. It's just kind of right down the middle. Really, really cool color. This is our last one, so let's add our flake, look at these, and then we'll get all 7 of them out. And last but certainly not least, there are all 3 versions of Lureworks. Really, really nice color. In person, you can see the blues coming out a little bit more on this one, but still just a really nice kind of middle of the road color. Now let's get all 7 of these back out and let's see which ones you guys like the best. And there you guys have all 7 versions of Junebug. And you can see these are all different in their own right. Not all colors are created equal, and that is the beauty of lure making. We can do whatever we want. You've got your more pinkishy red colors. We've got your really red version with the MF. You've got your blues. You've got kind of an in-between. You really have options for whatever you want. And that's why we do these videos, so that you guys can see. It's unlike the motor oil videos where they were either labeled changeable, like you got your changeables, your standard, your clean, dirty, vice versa. These are all just Junebug. And when you're looking online and trying to figure out which one you want, sometimes it's hard to figure out which one's going to work best for you. So here you have all 7 versions that we could find. Again, I know there are black grape pigments that a lot of guys use for their Junebug, but we just wanted to test these out. I will again throw all these in the light box at the very end so you can get a nice up close visual of each one. But yeah, there you guys have all 7 Junebugs. And there you have it, guys. That's every Junebug pigment that we could find. These videos are kind of cool to do just to see the variations from brand to brand. Don't worry, all you guys that voted for Green Pumpkin, that video will be coming. There's just a lot of effort and time that goes into these videos, so that's why we can't do them on every single one. But nonetheless, I appreciate you guys clicking on this video. If you liked it, don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and we'll see you on the next one.